Stephen has called our attention to pain this morning and sickness somewhat, and the brochure here that he's prepared. And I would like to continue that just a bit. And first of all, we'll focus on medicine, okay? The problem with medicine, well, I guess there could be many problems. Sometimes it has side effects, but the course is not interested in that particularly. Physical side effects. What it's interested in is the effect it has on your mind. It's not that it's wrong in taking it at all, but it must be really a basic principle that as you take medicine, your mind is going through some operations that say something like this. I need the medicine. I can't get better without it, and therefore the body is real because because the body needs this medicine, and I must attend to it and use it to improve it. But there's another way of looking at it. You could just simply say with great emphasis to yourself that the body's not real, but I just don't care about pain. And this medicine will reduce my pain level. But the Course doesn't want you to slip into thinking that the body has made the pain. It is the mind that does that. You know, there's the quote that we read just a minute ago, which is really good, and it's short. The body cannot create. In other words, it can't make up stuff in and of itself. We're not emphasizing the word create here. It can't make either. It doesn't create or make, it seems to me. The belief that it can is a fundamental error, and then it says it produces all symptoms. All. Not all minus one, or all minus 2 or 3. It produces all physical symptoms. Your mind is making all physical symptoms. And as you put the pill in your mouth, there's going to be an almost overwhelming tendency to believe, well, no, not really. The body has done it, because the pill addresses the body. The pill does not address your mind. Only if we had a pill that would cure the mind, we would just pass this out free, and everything. But the pill only affects, it may cure, may help, may not have, whatever effect it has. It only affects the body. I have a little tickle in my throat this morning for some reason or other, but it's not painful. I'm sure the mind made it, but it's not painful. It's just what it is. I would like to share with you in this sense an experience I had a few weeks ago. I may have even mentioned it earlier in one of the other meetings. I don't recall now. But I would like to talk about it some more. I just mentioned it to Dan. That's what it was.
That's okay. I forgot how you can tell me.
Well, we'll forget it. We'll talk about it and forget it again, I suppose. My tooth started hurt. My mouth started hurting. And usually when that happens, you say, well, okay, where's the tooth that hurts? And you try to locate it, And I was having trouble locating. It seemed like the whole area was hurting. Pain is a very interesting thing. What's interesting about it is it really is quite effective at grabbing your whole attention instead of only half of it or a third of it or whatever. And yet it is only affecting a 20th or 100th part of your body. I mean, it's not over your whole body. But no matter, even in some one area, it says, attend to me fully. And it insists in great loud tones. Now, I almost thought that was a miracle. I was thinking, what could I put on this to reduce the pain? I thought about taking some Tylenol. Well, I haven't taken it in years, and I couldn't find it. Oh, well. Anything else? I said, I wish there was something I could just put on the tooth. And I just normally don't have anything. I opened this little drawer where sometimes there's a medicine, and there was a little capsule there that said pain relief that you could rub on. Oh, well, I could use that. It's nice to know it's there, and I just left it in the drawer and shut the drawer back. I don't want to use it if I don't really have to, because of the danger of deciding, that the mind, that it's the body that's causing this. So what I did instead, I said, well, I'm just going to remind myself that I'm not a body. And furthermore, this pain does not mean anything. This pain has no meaning at all. I know that it is caused by the mind, and I need to learn, what thought in the mind caused it. And it just took me a second to do that. I knew what that was. I said, we just need to change that thought. And so I did. Now, the pain doesn't go away immediately. I never expect that. If it does, that's great. But it just seems like it has a tendency to linger. But no matter, I knew what the incorrect thought was. And so I just said, yeah, I don't need that thought. Let's just let that go. But the pain was still there. And so I kept saying, well, you need to remind yourself that pain is going to be telling you that it's constant and it never goes away. That's a message it brings to your mind. Isn't that weird? It doesn't have to use words. It's really kind of smart in that sense. It doesn't have to use words. It knows that if it ups the amplitude enough, that you will decide you don't like it. Well, that comes real quick. And that it's not ever going to go away. You would never use those words, but no matter, that's the message. It just grabs your whole attention and says, you're going to have this forever. Now, if asked that, do you really think that pain will never go away? You'd probably say, well, I'm not sure. I hope not. I mean, I hope it will, go away. I hope it won't stay forever. But there's something about it that says, well, this is constant. So you need to remember, no, this is not constant. It will fluctuate. And furthermore, it's not real. Now, the Course says the same thing about happiness, Happiness that fluctuates and is not constant, it calls elusive happiness. And it says it's not real. I don't care how strongly you feel it. It's actually not real. And it's okay to have it. There's nothing wrong with being happy for a little while. But we're made for happiness that is constant. And the happiness we have here, well, there are two kinds. There's the happiness that you experience in the world. It's often elusive. I'm not saying you can't have constant happiness here, but it may be a little rare. Let's put it that way. More often we have an elusive happiness. Now he likes me, now he doesn't. Now she likes me, now she doesn't. Now the dog is friendly, now the dog is not. Whatever. Changes. Okay. Well, the same thing is true with pain. It comes and it goes. And so I just kept saying to myself, it's not real. And in that sense, it has no, other than helping me find what my mental error is, it is useful in that way, but I took care of that pretty quickly. It's not real. There's a real temptation when a sensation, a bodily sensation of any sort is big enough, you think it's real because it's big. By big, I mean intense. And to solidify this thought in our mind, the Course says that pain has a brother or a sister or whatever, and it's called pleasure. And I don't think the Holy Spirit sees them as different. He says they're the same thing. Because the Holy Spirit seems to be thinking about the overall effect. He is not into our desire for pleasure or avoidance of pain, or intense avoidance of pain that we have. And we really want that one and not this one. We go after this one and try to run away from this one. And we get attracted to one, and attracted in a kind of negative sense of this one. We paying attention to it in the sense of trying to stay away from it. It says they're the same thing because of their purpose. They have the same purpose. They were made for one reason.
Distraction.
Both of these were made for the same, made let's say, to convince you of what? That the body
is real.
is real. That's their purpose. They were not made so that you will be able to experience nice little pleasure of eating a really good donut or whatever. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to convince you the body is real. Now, taking medicine makes it easier for you to be convinced that the body is real, see, and that the body is the cause of it. And the Course doesn't want you to be convinced of this. So what I was wanting to do, I knew that there was some pain here. I wanted to remember that it's temporary. It's going to be here for a while, ugly stuff, and then it's not. It may come back a little bit, and it's not. It's not. It actually, it's not forever and eternal. That's obvious and clear. But again, we kind of can forget that. And so while I'm feeling this, I'm saying this doesn't mean anything. And in particular, it doesn't harm me. I knew there was no harm involved here. I mean, it's not like I had a nail stuck in my gums and I needs to be pulled out. I would attend to that and get that out of there if there was such there. It's just there's this discomfort. And so I have to remind myself, this is not real. And that actually does lessen the effect of pain to some extent. Because you're saying, well, it doesn't mean anything, other than the thing we've already mentioned, already taken care of. Other than that, it doesn't mean anything, and it's not really. So I, the being, the eternal being, am not being bothered by any of this. And I, the eternal being, am not even being hurt by this. It's just my body mechanism is in a state of duress here because of it. And it's not excruciating, it's really obnoxious. That's my word for pain. It's just obnoxious, just draws your whole attention. And so you do that for a while, and then it'll be gone. Oh, okay, this is all right. This is fine. And then it'll be a little bit more, then it's gone. And after a while, I just went to sleep, you might say. Well, I think this was at night. And I could have put something, I had something, it was something kind of like this, but smaller. And I could have rubbed that on there. And maybe it would have affected the pain a little bit, but probably not that much. These little things that bring pain relief, they don't probably really just amazingly knock it out unless you take a drug. Well, I wasn't interested in taking a drug. Couldn't find that Tylenol anyhow. Wasn't really interested in it. And I went to sleep. Woke up the next day. Well, it's still there a little bit, mouth sore and everything. And I decided that I didn't really think it was on any one tooth. It just must be the mouth acting up. Sometimes that happens. And the next day it was, and so it was sore a little bit. The next day it was less sore. The next day it was basically gone. It took several days. It was gone. But I managed to avoid using a device that would convince me, to some extent or other, that the body had caused this, and might not have helped that much anyhow, And besides, by letting myself know that this is not real, it's not, and I'm not it's only the body that's hurting. I'm not affected here, just the body. Of course, I feel it. I do feel it. But I just felt it important enough to not bother with a compromised solution, you might say, if I don't have to. Now, if it was just excruciating and I was clutching the top of the bed and about to scream, yeah, if you can give me something to take the pain away, I would do so. Because pain, this is saying that pain will take you into fear if you allow it. And we don't want to go there. And the Course is encouraging you. Yes, if you need something, if it's strong enough, they will take you into fear. Like, oh my God, will this ever go away? I think I wish I was dead. Whatever, however you might express your fear. Well, let's try not to go there. you see. And the Course itself is saying that's not the Holy Spirit's purpose. His purpose is to decrease fear, not to increase it. So this pain wasn't that big, you know. And we all know, we all have been around, probably been around people that are in really a lot of pain. I don't call this a whole lot of pain, it's medium or something. But it was enough to get my attention. I don't like pain. I don't like any of it. Nevertheless, whether it's big, little, or red or yellow, I don't care for it. But it wasn't huge. And I've been around huge pain, and when huge pain means you want to scream. You know, and so I know that is there, and it wasn't there. But in huge pain, if it's huge like that, liable to take you into fear, the Holy Spirit says, it basically saying, hey, if there's something that'll cut this down, take it. We don't want to go into fear. There's no point in making this situation worse than it already is, okay? And fear makes it worse, you see. So take, if you've got something that's safe, and you feel led to do that, go right ahead. On the other hand, if it's not necessary, don't do it. And remember that the pain only lasts for a while. It's not like it claims to be. It's not going to be your constant condition for the next 50 years or however many more years you live. It's going to last for a little while. And you always do have the option, if it does get bigger, of taking that medical pill or Tylenol or whatever it is that is there. Yes.
Yeah, I was about, this is remind me, I was about 90 years old, I think, and I needed my tonsils out. But I was concerned about it, you know, and it was going to be done by Dr. Thornburg, the same guy that delivered me out on the farmhouse. I was about 9 years old. My parents, they primed me that I could have a chocolate ice cream cone if I went ahead and did it. So that was worth it to me.
Okay.
But they put you to sleep, and you don't know. Back then, they just gave you ether,
Right,
you know, and
right.
put you to sleep. And I got my ice cream cone. I qualified.
Well, I'm glad they had ether. That made it a lot, and the ice cream cone, that made it a lot better. Now, the question arises then, I mean, there's some quote in the Course about you can't have pleasure without pain or stuff. It wants to connect them. And that, I guess that's because, again, the Holy Spirit doesn't see them as being different. It knows what it does. It teaches you this, and it doesn't want that to be taught. Now, it seems to me, then, if you want to say the pain is not real, you know, when you're feeling it, this is not real, you need to do the same thing with pleasure. If pain's not real, neither of them are real, by the way. Happiness is not pleasure. They're two different things. Happiness is great, okay? Happiness is your natural state. Not elusive happiness, but just happiness all the time. Pleasure and happiness are not the same. Now the ego, the Course says the ego will teach you that pleasure is happiness. And it's easy to fall into that. We kind of like pleasure. We kind of dislike pain. In fact, forget the kind of. We hate pain and we love pleasure, if you want to put it in the strongest terms. They're neither are real. They don't mean anything. Just because they're really of great intensity. See, we're fooled by intensity. If I just have a little pain, oh, that hurt a little bit. Kind of exaggerating. But if it's just a little pain, you say, oh, well, no problem. Maybe I'll have a bruise there, so what? Okay. But as the intensity increases, and instead of a little weight that fell on your hand, if it was a big hammer, it come down real hard, you see, now there's more feeling in it. It's getting black and blue there. Now you say, oh, this hurts a lot. This must be real. Don't be deceived by that. Intensity doesn't mean reality. There really isn't, I think, anyway, this is my opinion, I guess, a tendency to be deceived by intensities. You're not deceived by little effects that have practically, very little intensity. I mean, I've noticed that as you get older, you get bruises, and you don't even know where you got them. I mean, you know, it's just a blue spot. I wonder where I got that. You know, you just don't pay that much. You know, I mean, you bump into something, and you know, oh well, whatever, keep going. You know, a little kid bumps into something. It's you know, pain seemed more. Although that's not always true. Sometimes the little kids ignore them too. But I think they feel a little bit more keenly if they're not busily engaged in something really pleasant. Like if you're playing as a little kid, you might get hurt and not even notice it if you're really playing and having a great time, you know. And we're still like that, I suppose, except now we're more likely to be working rather than playing, but if our attention is strongly in another direction, we might not notice it at all. But I do believe that as you ratchet up the intensity, there's something in that mind says, oh, this is great big, or that is great big. It doesn't matter. That means it must be real. No, it does not mean that. You see. That's my opinion. I don't think the Course says that. I think it's consistent with what the Course says. Yeah, I don't recall the Course actually saying that. But at any rate, that's just my experience, that intensity, and it's probably yours too. If it is not, let us know, yeah.
Well, it says that this might be an example of intensity, that the ego is vicious.
Yes.
And we see the ego's intensity in the world a lot.
Right. You know, we try to avoid that viciousness in ourselves, but when we see it in the world, it does get our attention. And that's a good point, because I imagine that most of us in here don't go into viciousness very often, if ever. And it's fine if you do, it doesn't matter. But it's not a fun place to be, let's put it that way. And nor do other people really appreciate you a whole lot when you're doing that, other people you're around. And it's quite common, actually. Now, one of the most common ways for viciousness, for the ego to get that kind of hold, is when you have already decided that a whole group of people are bad. That's called prejudice. In other words, I'm not going to go to the trouble to decide individually whether you're bad. It's just if you're the wrong race, religion, gender, or whatever, or anything, whatever else you think of, you know, country, whatever. Then I get to judge you, and the ego says, "Oh boy, this is so much fun. We don't even have to work hard." There, as soon as we see that difference, our hair color, that's not a real common prejudice, but somebody could be prejudiced against everybody with white hair like Dan, or gray hair like me, or yellow hair like you, or whatever, you know. Because no prejudice makes any sense. It's just a trick that the ego uses, so you don't have to work so hard, and you'll go there automatically, and you won't check yourself, and then it can become vicious. Oh, let's just kill all of them. You know, you've probably heard people say the things more or less like that. Yes.
Well, how strange, though, because if the ego left alone would kill all of us.
Yeah, and you'd be one of them just killing too. It's not prejudice. It's prejudice extends to you as well. It doesn't always tell you that, but it doesn't like you either. The Course says the ego does not like you. Most certainly doesn't love you. It can't love anything, actually. Its sole purpose is mainly to maintain its own survival, which it does through guilt and fear, and keep you believing that you're separate. That's its basic purpose, is to teach you, or in case you forget, that you're separate from other people and separate from God, and you're worthless and really don't have a chance for any goodness at all. That's its goal, I suppose.
How opposite that belief is from God's will, where He wills total happiness.
Right. Right. So I'm just saying that, yes, the ego is, you had a remark.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, you'd said early on that you quickly figured out the thought, the mental problem.
Yeah, that wasn't very hard, yeah.
Well, but that's key.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Yes,
could you speak to your process you went through to figure that out? Because I think a lot of us have trouble figuring out, what is my thought that's causing this pain?
It's real simple, it seems to me, for the most part. It's a grievance. You judge somebody or something. Well, I guess you either judge somebody, or maybe a group of people even, and in a negative sense, of course, and then that will cause pain. That's a separation thought.
Was there a specific thought that you
Yes,
had
there was
different from what you've been having?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be specific. It's not going to be I think the human race is not as important as the Martian race, in case it ever existed. It's going to be very specific. Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I could be specific to a group of people, like we mentioned just a minute ago. If you're prejudiced against a whole race, then it could be that. But still think of that as specific. I don't think it'll ever be specific against all of humanity. I'm going to now judge against all of humanity. I don't think that'll be it. It'll be more specific than that. I could be wrong there, but it seems in my experience, it's always been more specific, and it's not hard. I don't go out and have a bunch of grievances. So the first thing you need to get to the place where you don't have many grievances.
Then they stand out more when you do.
If you got 20 or 30 grievances, your work's cut out for you. I mean, and if you want this kind of information to be helpful, you need to get on the stick, or just go on complaining about how this doesn't work, which really means, well, you're just not getting rid of those grievances. And that work is terribly important. It should be your main focus, in my opinion, if you really want to love yourself. Because if you don't love others, you don't love yourself. They go together,
Mm-hmm.
And so get your grievances down to a workable number here.
It all boils down to forgiveness.
Huh?
It boils down to forgiveness.
Yes, it does boil down to forgiveness. That's how we get rid of grievances, is we forgive that other person. First, a judgment of another person, of course, is his projection of your guilt on him. He hasn't done anything, but you don't care about that. Not at the unconscious level. I mean, the ego says, well, he looks kind of bad, close enough. Project badness onto him or her, and then get mad at them. And this happens more or less unconsciously. You don't do it in a nice, careful, rational, thought-out way. It just happens. You look at it. Hey, I don't like the way he looks. He looks like the kind of person I don't like. And so you project that. Well, in order to cure this problem through forgiveness, you've got to remember that he is not the problem, you are, and you bring that judgment back. As long as it's projected out there, you can't get rid of it. It's kind of like if I've got a ball, to get rid of the ball, I got to have it in my hands. If it's way over there, I can't reach it. I can't get rid of it. You got to pull it back. Okay, now it's here. Now I set it down. I don't want it. I can get rid of it. So you pull it back and say, only my own thoughts hurt me. He didn't hurt me. Which of my thoughts hurt me? Which judgment? It was my judgment, thought of judgment. And it would probably you're projecting in a judgment of yourself. So in your forgiveness, it's really a way to remind yourself that you are lovable. If you remember that you're lovable, then you would just simply extend love instead of projecting guilt. The Course says the mind is always going to do one or the other. You project guilt or you extend love. If you're going to extend love, you need to remember that you are lovable. I don't think you can extend love with the idea that, ooh, I'm not lovable, I'm awful and awful. How can you extend love if you feel that? So you must be open to the truth that you are lovable. Look, just as everybody else is. God created you that way. You don't have an option. You can't change that. Whether you want, you can change your belief about it, but you can't change the fact that you're not only are you lovable, you are a part of God. That's what the Course says. God created you by extending His own thought, not by grabbing some idiotic thought over here in the corner. Oh, let's make Joe with his idiotic thought. No, he extended His thought, which is perfect. There's nothing about God's thought that's not perfect. He extended it somehow and made you, or created you actually, in the Course's language. And then we have now lost sight of that to some extent, so you need to remind yourself of that I, in my essence, am in the mind of God right now. I'm a part of the Creator. Everything else I'll say is just fiction. And we like fiction stories. We love to read novels. And here we're participating in the making of a novel, you might say, or our own novel. And so I'm emphasizing here that the intensity does not mean that it's real. It does not mean that. And that's why that's why it's useful to say to yourself, this pleasure or this pain, whichever, is not real. And you particularly need to say that when it's intense. If it's not so intense, every time you bite a cookie and it tastes good, I don't really think it matters. Well, maybe, unless you're just a real cookie lover. I'm not a cookie lover. But if you're a real cookie lover, then maybe you do, you see. You figure out the details for yourself, however that works best for you. But the point is not to be deceived by the intensity. And you'll be deceived by it when it's large, not when it's little, see. And so even when it feels good, particularly if it feels real good, it is not real. It's not wrong to have it. It's not wrong to experience it. Don't forget. It's not real. If you forget it there, you're liable to forget it here as well. They go together. Holy Spirit saying, hey, they're both made for the same purpose. Well, let's treat them in the same way. Let's remember that they're not real. And they do, because the body, and it has to do with the fact that the body is not real. And when we say it's not real, we mean that it can't create or make the symptoms you're feeling. The body cannot create. It means not create, can't create symptoms. The mind is doing that through the body. The body cooperates, I suppose, you might say. But the belief that it can make whatever, it produces all physical symptoms. And I'm emphasizing the word all. It does. So if they're in the mouth, yes. If they're in the toe, yes. If they're in someplace else, it doesn't matter. All physical symptoms. But do not expect, just because you know the cause, suppose you know. Now that discomfort did not go away immediately. That didn't mean I hadn't released it enough. I got rid of it. And I didn't have to get rid of it more than next day. I got rid of it, period. But that doesn't, you can't, I don't know why this is. I think it was kind of like the tide coming in, and finally the tide stops, but there's still water on the sand. And then the tide goes back out, you know. The water doesn't just immediately disappear just because it stops. It's kind of retreating, you might say, but it's still there to some extent. Now, in complicated cases, and there are some cases are complicated, this is something that's important to know. Sometimes pain is caused by more than one mental error. Now we're getting complicated. That's why it really pays off to release to get rid of those grievances. So you just got one or two. Zero should be the operative state. Zero.
Makes it easier to identify.
It makes it easier to identify. But if you got to hold on to one, well, mark it cleared in the mind. Okay, this is my one grievance. I really hate that guy. You know, whatever, or whatever it is you don't like. I'm waiting for my toothache to come back now. Or whatever, or some other condition. I don't know.
Well, you might also have times where you have a grievance and you don't get sick from it.
That's true. By the way, you will get sick more often the better you learn this material and the more you practice it. And that sounds, what? Well, what I'm talking about is the body is a learning device of the mind. Therefore, as your mind gets healthier, it has to be recalibrated. So it will respond to little errors that previously it would not have paid any attention to. If it's going to be a body, a learning device of the mind. The thermometer has to be recalibrated, you might say. Instead of, it's like if the thermometer here has little marks for every degree, and if you never have more than 1/40th of a degree of temperature, well, this is the wrong thermometer. You've got to have one that has a whole bunch of little marks in there, so you can tell, is it over the 1/40th or below it, you know, so it can be useful. And the Course does say this, and I forget exactly the way it says it, but it does make that statement that you will be more sensitive to areas that otherwise you would have not even thought about, see. In other words, if you had some really terrible problem, you like to shoot people and curse them out, you're not going to be concerned about the mild little insult that you gave somebody. You're just trying to keep from killing people. You know, and you know, you're not going to feel guilty over the fact that you forgot to give them a rose. You know, on Mother's Day, say, or whatever. You're working on controlling your temper and not really flying off the handle and doing big damage. Well, and that's appropriate. You need a coarse-grained thermometer for that. You see, you don't need a really fine-marked one. But as you learn more and more and more, and you don't do these outlandish, what the word to call them, large effect kind of things. You do just small, you insult people occasionally, perhaps, or smaller effect things. You need your body. The learning device needs to be more finely calibrated, so it will tell you that, and because then you begin to realize how useful the body is. Because we are very well, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of mentally late. Well, some people are more mentally lazy than others, and we're not going to try to line us up and see who's the worst or the best. How would you do that anyhow? And who cares? It's just we all have a certain tendency towards that, to let something slide. Oh, I know it's not quite right, but I'm just going to let it slide. I'm going to go ahead and eat my apple and not think about it anymore. It's fairly common human behavior. To do something like that. So you just let it slide. And then the body decides, well, he's letting it slide too much. It's time we woke him up about this. And then the tooth hurts, see. It's doing you a favor in a certain sense. You want to look at it that way. And instead of saying, in other words, this is hurting me, this is actually going to be, this pain that's in the tooth is not real, but I can learn from it. The Holy Spirit will use it to teach me something useful, and He will. That's why it's there. Yeah.
I often wondered why in the Bible, you know, when the stories of Jesus healing, he would end the healing and say, "And go and sin no more." And I think maybe it falls in line with this. You know,
It may. Yeah.
You know, you're experiencing the pain or whatever, because of some sin, and through His intervention, He healed and forgave and healed it.
Yeah. And
then He tells you, sin no more.
Well, the course's language would be try not to make more mistakes.
Right,
You know.
that's the same kind of thing.
But it's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
So He could have said, don't make any more mistakes.
Right. Right. But they didn't have that terminology there. Their terminology was to go and sin no more. The difference between sin. Well, I won't go into that. That's for some other time, another day, another time.
But there again, it's a correction of the mind.
That's right. That's right. Correcting the mind is much more important than we realize. Your mind is a perfect creation, but it can still make errors. I think of the mind as if it were a basketball or something, and the basketball is perfect. Inside the basketball are the thoughts. Some of the thoughts are lousy. I mean, you know, so because the basketball is making little thoughts inside itself, see, and some of them are not need to. And the healing occurs within the mind. The mind itself, the structure, is perfect, but it has freedom, and it's as if it's being sprayed with WD-40 all the time, so it can really move and slide easily. And sometimes it just slides into errors, and then you get these error thoughts in here. See. WD-40 is that which enhances free will. Let you slide into this or that real easily. Okay. Well, I've got a final act to do, just to finish this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.